Shri Shuka Uvacha Nisham Yavacham Badato Mune Punyatamam Nripa Bhuya Paprachakorabhyo Vasudeva Kathadritaha. Sri Shukadev Goswami said, O king, after hearing all these most virtuous topics from the sage Maitreya, Vidura inquired further on the topics of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which he adored to hear. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The word adrita is significant because it indicates that Vidura had a natural inclination for hearing the transcendental message of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he was never fully satisfied, though continuing to hear those topics. He wanted to hear more and more so that he could be more and more blessed by the transcendental message. Today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 13, entitled The Appearance of Lord Varaha. Text 1. Hare Krishna. I am very grateful to be with all of you today. It is truly a blessed pilgrimage to be among so many devotees in the presence of Shri Shri Radha Gopinath, where devotees come together with sincere, devoted hearts to hear and chant the glories of the Lord. That truly is a place of pilgrimage. Thank you for being here. That is the subject of today's verse. Sri Sukadev Goswami said, O king, after hearing all these most virtuous topics from the sage Maitreya, Vidura inquired further on the topics of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which he adored to hear. In the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, leading to this verse, we find the pilgrimage of Vidura. Today we are discussing how he's hearing the topics of Lord Krishna. Vasudeva Kathadrita. With great happiness. We learn how to hear about Krishna from the great souls. In Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna didn't just go to a nice katha to hear Krishna speak. He was on a battlefield. And what led him to that battlefield? His father died. His mother brought him to a kingdom which belonged to his elder brother. And yet, they were envied, they were blasphemed, they were persecuted, they were cheated. Dhritarashtra was meant just to hold the kingdom until they came old enough. There was no moral justification for him to do anything else. And then they were exiled to the forest for 12 years. And it was assumed by almost everyone that when they come back, they would get their kingdom. But after being in the forest in the final year, they had to be hiding. If anyone caught them or saw them, then they would have to go another 12 years. And when they came back, they were despised even more. And Arjuna, he called upon Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Yudhisthira Maharaj. They asked Krishna to speak to Dhritarashtra about being fair. Morally, it was his duty to give everything to Yudhisthira Maharaj, the emperorship of the whole world. But at least give something. Duryodhana, he would not give, in his own words, enough space where a pin could pierce. And thus it was destined there would be the great battle of Kurukshetra. So heartbreaking. They're actually all family. In those days, cousins were considered sisters and brothers. There was practically no difference. The Pandavas were Kurus. They were descendants of the Kuru dynasty. But even today, hardly anyone calls the five brothers Kurus. Why it's called the Kurus and the Pandavas? They're all Kurus. Yudhisthira Maharaj, Arjuna, Bhima, Nakula, Sahadev, they were as much descendants of the line of Kuru as anyone else, as Duryodhana, Dushasana. But yet, now they're called Pandavas. Such a divide that became the most horrible of all wars. And hardly anyone survived that war. It was only a handful of people on both sides that survived. And Arjuna, he could understand how bloody and how deadly it would be for both sides. And he didn't want to fight. He didn't want to be a part of it. But yet he was meant to be a general, one of the prominent leaders. In fact, his side of the battle was depending upon him to lead the charge of war. So he was really in a dilemma. Could any of us imagine being in such a dilemma? It's not just personal tragedy that you've seen happening for so many years of your life. It's not just seeing the suffering your mother had to go through. It's not just the suffering you had to see your elder brother being deprived and denied his rights, but also that he had to lead a war between the family where his beloved grandfather, his beloved teacher, was on the other side. He'd fight against him. And it was almost for sure that they would all be fights to death. And he was actually feeling morally responsible for what was about to happen. Sometimes we're in anxiety about things, but have we ever been put in a situation like that? For such a noble, powerful, fearless, courageous warrior as Arjuna to turn white in complexion, to drop his bow, for his mouth to be dried up so he could hardly speak, tears flowing from his eyes. He gave so many arguments why he should not fight, and he would not fight. And ultimately, Krishna, what should I do? And Bhagavad Gita was spoken. What was the urgency in which Arjuna was taking shelter of each and every word Krishna was speaking to him? It's not that after he surrendered to Krishna and heard Bhagavad Gita that everything became really nice. Sometimes we think when we shake shelter of Krishna, when we surrender to Krishna, then things will go our way, because Krishna is the supreme controller of all controllers. After Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita, things got even more difficult than ever before. He actually had to see his son get killed. He had to personally be shooting the arrows to kill Bhishma, his beloved grandfather. And everything else that happened. But because he heard with faith, even despite the challenge, he executed the will of Krishna. What does it really mean to hear? What does it really mean to have a taste for hearing? It means the willingness to follow what we hear, to attentively hear, and then a willingness to follow. Whether it's blissful or even apparently tragic. Yes, after the battle, which is the topic of Mahabharata, it's not that there was a great celebration. After surrendering to Krishna and the battle's over, then he finds out that his worst enemy, practically his whole life, who he did kill unfairly on the battlefield, was his own brother, Radhaya or Karna. Kunti kept it a secret. And seeing his mother's broken heart, "Why are you crying? This is our enemy." She said, "This is your brother, your elder brother." Think about this state of consciousness in which Arjuna heard the Bhagavad Gita. He was in a condition of great crisis. He totally took shelter of Krishna, was completely attentive to every word of Krishna. And then to execute Krishna's will, such a difficulty, such heartbreak. And Srila Prabhupada explained, what does it mean that he's transcendental? It doesn't mean he didn't feel the pains of all this. It means he continued his service for the pleasure of Krishna, whatever was happening. And in that love for Krishna, in that surrender, in the shelter of Krishna's words, he was feeling actually deep in his soul, he was experiencing the ecstasy of Krishna's love. So, through this beautiful example, what does it mean to be absorbed in Krishna-katha? It means to feel the great need to hear, to approach Krishna or the representatives of Krishna, like a thirsty person, a starving person. Just imagine being in the middle of the Rajasthani desert. And for days and days and days, there's only the beating, blazing sun and the hot, dry sand. No food, no water. And you're given a glass of water. What would be your enthusiasm to drink? How attentively you would accept it. That was the mood of Arjuna when he heard Bhagavad Gita. He was absorbed. But that's only partial absorption. When we hear about being absorbed, following in the footsteps of not only Arjuna, but all the great acharyas, absorption means we totally have the will to follow. Arjuna totally had to will to do what he absolutely did not want to do, because it was for Krishna. And he was going to do it with all of his might, with all of his heart and soul. To do something that breaks your heart with all your heart, that takes great sincerity. Yesterday I spoke at the Rotary International Conference, and one of their famous statements is service before self, which is, the nobility of their cause. And bring that to the highest spiritual platform. And we find the gopis of Vrindavan, service before the self. And we find here Arjuna, service before the self. What will please you, Krishna? Yes, his absorption was not only at the present of hearing, with great attention, but also the willingness to reciprocate through service, through following. And in this sense, we can get a glimpse of what Harikatha really means. Harikatha is the most enjoyable thing for the soul. But actually, what Harikatha is, why is it so enjoyable to the soul? Because in giving oneself truly to Harikatha, we're pleasing Krishna. We're fulfilling Krishna's desire. Shrinvata Swakatha Krishna Punja Sravana Kirtana. When Krishna sees that we're absorbed and taking great pleasure in hearing his message, he is so pleased that from within the heart he gives himself. He cleanses all the egos and all the desires of material existence that come between us. And then we have the example of Arjuna's grandson, Parikshit Maharaj. He didn't have such an easy past either. From the very beginning of his life in the womb of his mother, Ashwatthama sent a Brahmastra to kill him. And he actually saw this blazing weapon coming into the womb to annihilate him. And he heard his mother, Uddhava, crying out to Krishna to save her child. She wasn't crying out to save her. She was willing to die if it would save her child. And Krishna appeared and saved him. And then he was young, and Yudhishthira Maharaj gave him the throne. And he, his grandfather, and his granduncles, they all left for the forest, never to be seen again. And then, just for a mistake he did make, he was cursed to die in 7 days. He was at the prime of his life, too. cursed to die in 7 days. And he accepted it as the will of the Lord and the opportunity to search for the Lord. And he went on a pilgrimage to the bank of the Ganges. To associate with great sages and hear the topics of Krishna from him. And Sukadev Goswami spoke Srimad Bhagavatam. And there are many passages in the Srimad Bhagavatam where Parikshit Maharaj is describing how much nectar he's feeling by hearing the topics of Krishna. And the first 9 cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam, because he only had 7 days to live. Sukadev Goswami could have, because Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, Chaitanya Bhagavat, Chaitanya Charitamrita, they describe that even if Ananta Shesha, with all of his mouths, for the whole span of creation, was speaking the glories of Lord Chaitanya, he could not describe fully what Lord Chaitanya did in 1 day. And Lord Chaitanya is Krishna. And Shukadev Goswami is the intimate, loving associate of Srimati Radharani's, witnessing the most beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. Why didn't he just speak Braja Leela for 7 days? Why didn't he just speak about the gopis for 7 days? He spoke about Mahavishnu and Garbhodakshai Vishnu and Kshirodakshai Vishnu, and he spoke a lot about Lord Brahma and his perplexities trying to create the universe and all the children he created and all these challenges. Speaking about so many devotees, so many incarnations. And here it is, the 3rd canto. That means a couple days have already gone by, and he's come to the point to describe Lord Varahadev in great detail. And then he comes to the 10th canto and speaks the glories of Vrindavan. And then moves on to Dwarka and Mathura. And then describes the qualities of Kali Yuga and the instructions of Uddhava. And then he describes Kalki Avatar. So those 7 days were action-packed. And Sukadev Goswami, who's a connoisseur of the highest rasas, every word of Bhagavatam, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, he emphatically described every single word of the Bhagavatam. To truly understand it, you will get love for Krishna, liberated from all illusion. That is the power of Sukadev Goswami's narration. And that power is especially endowed wherever his words are described through the parampara, through those who are representing in disciplic succession. And it's not that after hearing Srimad Bhagavatam for 7 days from Sukadeva Goswami and completely taking shelter of the message, completely taking shelter of Krishna, Krishna's teachings, Krishna's pastimes, it's not that the curse miraculously disappeared. The snake bird came. What changed? The circumstances actually didn't change, but his consciousness was completely transcendentalized. He had realized Krishna's love for his soul and his love for Krishna. And in this section of Srimad Bhagavatam, Vidura is hearing from Maitreya. And the background of this and what's about to come is also quite transcendentally revealing. Vidura was everyone's well-wisher, but he spoke the truth because he was truly a well-wisher. He saw all the atrocities to the Pandavas. He saw the terrible spread of adharma, of irreligion, because of the offenses to the Pandavas. And it's interesting because Vidura was Krishna's uncle. And he had a very personal, loving relationship with Krishna. And he knew how Krishna loved the Pandavas. Arjuna was such a dear friend of Krishna. And being elder, Krishna gave honors and respect to Yudhishthira Maharaj with so much love, with so much mercy. So Vidura saw not only how much Kunti and the Pandavas had to suffer for so many years, but how Krishna was so displeased by seeing it all. How much that hurt Vidura. And how his own brother, Dhritarashtra, was actually a primary cause for all this. And he actually loved his brother, wanted to help him. He had very unconditional affection for Dhritarashtra. He could have left home any time. He caused Dhritarashtra great pain by speaking the truth to him. But he never gave up. And after the Pandavas returned from their exile, Vidura chastised Dhritarashtra, his brother. You are not only physically blind, you are morally and spiritually blind. Yudhishthira and the Pandavas are so dear to Krishna. They are his devotees, his friends. Krishna himself has come to plead with you to give them land. And Krishna's the proprietor of everything that exists. this is being entrusted. He didn't say all these words, but he's feeling it. Krishna has entrusted you with his property. And he's asking you to share it with his most beloved devotees, and you're denying it because of the influence of your son Duryodhana, who is so envious. He's offense personified. Don't you see? You are going to be the cause of the suffering and destruction of your whole dynasty. He was saying this with so much love, with so much concern. And he said it right in front of Duryodhana and Dushasana and Sakuni and Karna and Duryodhana, along with his associates, became so infuriated. Here is his senior, his uncle. Vidura is the son of Vyasadeva, very exalted position. The chief minister of his father, his well-wisher, his brother. And yet Duryodhana is so relentlessly, shamelessly offensive. His words were brutally harsh. He accused, he's doing so many immoralities. He's usurping somebody's property. He knows it belongs to Yudhishthira. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur described that the world is like a mirror of one's own state of consciousness. Before looking at the spot when we find faults in others, we're neglecting to actually look inside and see our own faults. That's the symptom of a conditioned soul. We want to blame others. We don't want to improve ourselves. He's calling Vidura the son of a kept mistress. This is as low as you can go, even today, to insult one's mother, to insult a person's mother. To insult a person is very painful, but to insult a person's mother, and to insult a person because of his mother, you are just a useless, discarded nothing because you were born from your mother. Similar, Uddhava Maharaj, how much it tore his heart apart when his stepmother Suruchi said, "You cannot sit on the throne of your father because you are not born of my womb. You were born of an inferior woman." That was an arrow in his heart. Insulting me because of my relation with my mother. That's quite painful. And although Vidura was trying to help because he knew what was happening, and he knew what would happen if Dhritarashtra didn't live by Dharma, but Duryodhana publicly proclaimed that Vidura was a spy. He was a spy of the enemy. I mean, we read about it, but if we really want to be absorbed in Srimad Bhagavatam, we don't just read it, we don't just hear it, we don't just memorize it, but we also feel it. Because bhakti is about knowledge that is actually felt with our heart. He sang to Vidura that you are so shameless. You are being maintained by us. You are getting your food from us. Your whole shelter is because of us. Everything you are is because of our mercy. And yet you are so shameless. You are so sinful that after taking so much, instead of being grateful, you are a spy for our enemies. And he wasn't speaking like me, just repeating some words. His words were like arrows, like blazing fire pouring out of his mouth with such anger and such envy and such hate. If you study those words carefully, he was deeply insulting. And then after such intensive insults, it culminates. You must leave. You must get out from here. You are no longer welcome in our kingdom. And all you can take is your breath. Cannot take your family. Cannot take any wealth. Cannot take an extra set of clothes. You get out from here with only your breath. Vidura left, and it describes he was deeply wounded by the sharp arrows of Duryodhana's words that pierced the core of his heart, it describes. But at the same time, he was happy. You see, Duryodhana's idea was very different than Vidura's as far as what breath meant. He said you can leave with only your breath. Now, on a physical level, our breath, at every moment, is keeping us alive. How valuable is each breath? We pay so much money for food. We work so hard for food and water. But we take for granted breath. You can't eat or drink or see or think. You can't do anything without breath. And yet we're breathing so many times. How many of you, since the beginning of this lecture up until now, were thinking of your breath? How valuable, how precious. It's nourishing every cell of the body, oxygen and Dwarkadish Prabhu and Madhavananda Prabhu, Giriraj Prabhu, Vaishnava Seva Prabhu, Vishru Prabhu, all these doctors, they know the science of how oxygen affects the blood, the cells, the brain, everything, the heart. Without breathing, nothing can survive. Breath is so universally the source of all life. The entire cosmic manifestation and all the universes are only existed because Mahavishnu's breathing. He exhales and we're all doing everything we're doing, and he inhales and we go back inside of him. and if we use our valuable time to get an actual absorption in hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord, we go back to the spiritual world. Otherwise, we go back into Mahavishnu with his inhalation, only to go through the 8,400,000 species of life in the next exhalation. And in our little bodies, we're breathing. And that is how we're supposed to remember Krishna, with every breath. Krishna was Vidura's prananath. He was his very prana, prananath, the Lord of his breath, the Lord of his life in every way. So when Duryodhana told Vidura, you can leave, but only take your breath, his life breath was Krishna. So he left, and all he had was not just his physical breathing through his lungs and nose and all that stuff. He left with his life breath, Krishna. And interestingly, Suruchi meant to torment Dhruva by saying you should go and worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead because you were born of an inferior mother. But actually, his mother, she said, when he came running to Suniti, his mother said, what your stepmother's saying is true, actually. You need to take shelter of the Supreme Lord. And he did. And he found Krishna. He left home. He left home to seek the Supreme Lord. And it was actually the advice of his stepmother, who was his enemy, trying to deprive him. So Duryodhana, he said, you leave with only your breath. So he left with only Krishna, his life breath. Praneshwara. And he went on pilgrimage. And even though it describes his heart was pierced to the core by these harsh words, there's a lot of similarities with Dhruva. Part of the pain of Dhruva, not only Suruchi insulted him to the core of his heart, but his father did nothing. And similarly, Vidura gave his whole life, practically, to helping his brother. Out of love, out of affection. It was hard for him to do what he was doing, to try to somehow or other give his brother a chance, because he was the only well-wisher of his brother, Dhritarashtra. But after he was horribly insulted, and everything was taken away, and he was disgracefully exiled, his brother did not say a word. Dhritarashtra just sat there and let it happen. What a betrayal that is. You give your life to somebody and they betray you totally, or you're taken away from your family, your home, your everything, if what to speak of even all your prestige, you're insulted. Dhritarashtra could have said, actually, Duryodhana, he's my brother. He's my well-wisher. He knew it, but he wouldn't say it because of that association. So it was very painful. But yet it describes, because he left with his life breath of Krishna, he was actually happy in heart. He could give, under these circumstances, as long as he was in the palace, seeing all this happening and trying to help, he was performing his duty. That was what Krishna wanted him to do. But now that it's impossible to do that, he was happy with the service he was given. Just going on holy places and remembering Krishna and praying to Krishna. And he went on pilgrimage. It is described that he was dressed like a beggar, a mendicant. And he was going to very remote places. It was a pilgrimage. He was just searching for Krishna, absorbed in Krishna wherever he was. And he dressed in such ways that none of his family members or anybody would ever recognize him. Nobody knew where he was. He wasn't on Instagram. I'm in Project Kshetra now. Except for Krishna, no one in the universe knew where he was. He was wandering alone in seclusion. He had no one to talk to. But he would go to holy places, and he would remember the Lord and worship the Lord, and secretly associate with the great sages and sadhus and devotees. And years went by. We go on a yatra for a couple of weeks, then we come home. He had no home to come back to. Everything was taken away, everything except Krishna, because no one in the world can take Krishna away from us if we have faith. So with a grateful and happy heart, he traveled from place to place, just hearing, chanting, and remembering Krishna, his dear most beloved Lord. And interestingly, Krishna honored Vidura as his uncle. And yet, Vidura was totally surrendered to the loving service of Krishna in any situation. Sometimes, when we get a change of service, we're thinking, oh, how could I live without this service? What service did Vidura have? The only service he had in his whole life now was just to remember Krishna. And knowing what tragedies all his loved ones were going to face. So years and years went by of Vidura wandering in incognito. And then he came to Pajakshetra. And there he received the news. The news of the Battle of Kurukshetra. And what transpired. He actually came back at a certain point to help Dhritarashtra. Give him another chance. And he heard about the whole Yadu dynasty. They had all disappeared from the world in a most inconceivable way. And he heard that Krishna left the world and Balaram left the world. Now there's really nothing for him to come back to. But he was so shocked to hear it. All he could do is remember Krishna in separation. He would never see him again, physically. But he was always searching for him in his loving devotion. And he carried on with his pilgrimage in this way. And ultimately he came to the river Yamuna. And there he met Uddhava. And Vidura, in his ecstasy of love, it's hard to understand, but when he met Uddhava, who was Krishna's dearmost friend and cousin, that means Vidura was Uddhava's uncle. He was a generation older than Uddhava. And Vidura, because he had not seen anybody from the Yadu or the Kuru dynasty in so many years, he was inquiring from Uddhava about each member of the Yadu and Kuru dynasty. One by one, he was asking, how is this? How is Pradyumna, and how is Samba, and how is Devaki and Vasudeva? And he went on and on and on, and ultimately, how is Krishna? Tell me all about them. How are they doing? How are they feeling? He already knew, but something in his heart just couldn't accept it. He was asking in the present moment for news. And there, Srila Prabhupada, he describes in purport that Vidura already knew the Yadus were gone and the Kurus were gone. But yet, his questions were psychological, not practical. I'll repeat Prabhupada. He said his questions were psychological, not practical. That's very deep, this idea of psychological, as Srila Prabhupada is. We talk about psychology on so many levels. But this psychological feeling of Vidura was based on his bhava. It wasn't just coming from his mind, it was his heart, it was his love, it was his ecstatic love and separation. It was too shocking and impossible for him to accept that Krishna was gone. He wanted to hear about Krishna. He wanted news about Krishna, even though he already knew. And when Uddhava heard the questions, he went into complete silence and meditated on Krishna. And it is described herein that when Uddhava was remembering Krishna in separation, remembering Krishna's love for him, Krishna's exchanges for him, Krishna's mercy to him, Krishna's love for him, Krishna's wonderful teachings, Krishna's wonderful pastimes, Uddhava went deeper and deeper and deeper into his ecstasies within. He was trembling, his hairs were standing on end, there were tears coming. And Vidura understood that Uddhava is in such a state of ecstatic love. And then Uddhava replied that Lord Krishna, who is the Son of the whole world, has said. The Son of the world, the Lord Krishna, has said. And now we are all being swallowed by the snake of eternal time. What shall we do? And then Uddhava, for many chapters of Srimad Bhagavatam, was expressing in separation his love for Krishna. His pastimes in Vrindavan, Dwarka. And as Uddhava was describing the beautiful pastimes of Krishna, especially the Vrindavan pastimes, because Uddhava had a very special, unique understanding and appreciation for Vrindavan pastimes. Krishna sent him to Vrindavan with message. He saw the love of Nanda Maharaj and the love of Yashoda in separation from Krishna. Just a couple days before, Uddhava was with Krishna. And after delivering the message, he was going back to be with Krishna. And when he was with Krishna before and after, he would spend most of the day, every day with Krishna. They had such a friendship. But here are the Brijbasis, Nanda, Yashoda, the Gopas, the Gopis, and ultimately Sri Radharani. He's saying Krishna's been away from them, and they don't know if he'll ever return. In their separation, the love that Uddhava saw in them, the intimacy of the love. You see, such love is not only a symptom of the person's love, but when we see such love in a devotee, we are also witnessing how Krishna is so intimately revealing his love for them. Because bhakti rasa is a reciprocal thing. Where is our love coming from? Ultimately, Krishna is the cause of all causes. Janmadhyasya yataha, that Krishna is the source of everything, the origin of all. That could be understood not only in the form of creation of this universes in the world, but also the rasas and the blisses of love. It's coming from Krishna and his self-same Hladini Shakti Sri Radha. When Uddhava witnessed the love of Radha, he was also witnessing Krishna's love for her. Why did Uddhava pray to be a blade of grass near Govardhan Hill in Vrindavan? It wasn't just because he wanted to be a servant of those who loves Krishna most. Yes, that was the reason, but why? Because getting the dust of the feet of gopis on his head, nothing could be more pleasing to Krishna. He wasn't doing it just to taste their love. He was also doing it because they were tasting Krishna's love. And ultimately he stayed in Vrindavan for some time and returned to Krishna. And he was a completely transformed person. He was the best friend of Krishna who now had the deepest understanding of what it means to love Krishna. And it's interesting because sometimes when we meet a great personality, we get special association, we could be proud. Yes, I have been with the saint. But actually Uddhava, he was totally humbled because he didn't feel great because he was with the greatest of all saints, Sri Radha and gopis. He felt insignificant. But that was the ultimate ecstasy of his life, to feel totally insignificant in the presence of Sri Radha, gopis, Yashodananda and Gopas. What an incredible experience. And that was when Krishna was in Mathura. And then they moved to Dwarka. And for over 100 years, Uddhava was almost constantly with Krishna. But the dimension of Krishna's awareness of his loving friendship with Uddhava was very much connected with Uddhava's feeling of complete insignificance. By his witnessing and feeling the love of the gopis. To pray from your heart of heart. Because anything he prays to Krishna, he'll get. He didn't pray for liberation. He didn't pray for mystic powers. He didn't pray for anything except to be a blade of grass, to be stepped on by the gopis. How that will please Krishna, feeling oneself so humbled before the love of these devotees. Yes, when we hear Krishna-katha, this is the type of absorption that we need to aspire for. So Uddhava is sharing his heart of hearts in the ecstasy of love and separation from Krishna to Vidura. And Vidura, in total rapt attention, is hearing everything. And he's feeling completely insignificant in the presence of such a great lover of God. And after describing so many beautiful leelas of Krishna and such wonderful graphic, it's in the Srimad Bhagavatam 10th canto is the beautiful story of Krishna's Vrindavan Leela. But the preface to all that is in the 3rd canto where Uddhava is sharing Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. And then he describes Mathura and Dwarka and Krishna's loving interrelations with devotees. And then he describes how the Yadu dynasty was gone. Kurukshetra happened. And how Krishna instructed Uddhava. Uddhava was totally absorbed in those instructions. The Uddhava Gita. There's the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna's instructions to the world, to Arjuna. And Uddhava Gita. Krishna's instructions to the world through Uddhava. And at the conclusion of the instructions, how Maitreya Rishi also came at that time, and Krishna instructed him. And then Krishna told Uddhava that it was imminent that the Yadu dynasty was about to have their disappearance from the world when Krishna spoke to Uddhava. And he spared only him. It is described in Bhagavatam because Krishna knew that Uddhava completely understood his instructions. And he kept him in the world to instruct others. He told Uddhava to go to Badrigashram to be with the great sages and Vaishnavas, devotees there, and to instruct them in the science of bhakti, as Krishna instructed him. And Uddhava left, and the Yadu dynasty disappeared from the world. Dwarka was flooded. Krishna and Balaram left. Can you imagine the emotions? Can you imagine beyond the practical, the psychology of Uddhava as he was on pilgrimage. Because that's a pilgrimage, going to Badrikashram. So Vidura is on a pilgrimage, and Uddhava is on a pilgrimage, and they're both meeting. And Vidura asks Uddhava, please tell me, what did Krishna say in his instructions to you, the Uddhava Gita? And Uddhava said, it is my instruction to go to Badrikashram now. But Maitreya Rishi is close by. And he's old enough to be, he's your peer, Vidura. He's elder than me. He's elder than you. He also heard the instructions of Krishna at the last stage of Krishna's pastimes. But it would be inappropriate for me to instruct you in Krishna's teachings when he is close by, because he's senior to me. And Srila Prabhupada describes both Maitreya Rishi and Uddhava. They were both pure devotees of the Lord. They both received the mercy and blessings of the Lord. But of the two, Uddhava had the deepest, most intimate connection to Krishna. Maitreya Rishi just came at the end and heard instructions. Uddhava lived from the time he was 5 years old. He would play with Krishna. And it is described that even he would play throughout the day and throughout the night. And when you're 5 years old, you need mother's care and father's care. And mother would call him home for lunch, and he would just play with Krishna. From his earliest childhood, he was completely absorbed in loving service to Krishna. Then he's sent to Vrindavan, and he realizes Uddhava didn't pray to be a gopi. He prayed to get the dust of the feet of the gopis. That's how much he honored them. He didn't want to be them. He wanted to serve them in the most menial, humble way. And that is very much part of why he was so very dear to Krishna. Because he was so humbled and eager to serve those who love Krishna. So, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's the Uddhava Gita. Doesn't say the Maitreya Gita. So Uddhava was more intimately advanced. But this is the quality of a great Vaishnava like Uddhava. Not only did he, the closest friend of Krishna, the person of everybody in Dwarka and everybody in Mathura and everyone in the Yadu dynasty, he had the most personal, intimate connection with Sri Radha and gopis. And Krishna's very best friend. But yet, not just as a matter of formality, that was there, but also as a matter of etiquette and his heart. He felt that he was not qualified to speak these teachings when Maitreya also heard them, and he's elder than me. He's a superior Vaishnava. It's more appropriate. You should go to him. And our acharyas and Srila Prabhupada describes this is a very sacred culture of Vaishnava etiquette, even if we're very learned and very advanced, still, if there's a senior elder Vaishnava who could give those instructions, it pleases Krishna when we honor that. So Uddhava tells Vidura, Maitreya is close by. If he's close by, it's not appropriate for me to give you these instructions. You go to him. He is elder. He is superior, senior. I will go to carry out Krishna's instruction in Badrikasha. And then they parted. That was in the river Yamuna. And Vidura, he comes to Haridwar on the bank of Ganga, and there he meets Maitreya Muni. And they're like peers. They're of the same generation. And Maitreya Rishi, like any great devotee, knows the glories of Vidura. He was acting like a Shiksha Guru to Vidura. But in his spirit, he was doing it as a servant of Vidura. And Srila Prabhupada and our acharyas, they teach us in this way, that the more advanced we become, the more we, in our heart of hearts, we feel to be the servant of everyone, especially those who are devotees of the Lord. Every living being is dear to Krishna. When Krishna is in the center of our life, then we recognize what to speak of the Paramhamsas, what to speak of the advanced devotees, or our peers as Vaishnavas, what to speak of the junior devotees who we may be giving instructions and guidance to. Even the conditioned souls. We understand how everyone is so dear to Krishna. And therefore, for the great souls, we want to serve them and please them because they love Krishna so much and Krishna loves them so much. To our peers, to advanced devotees, we want to learn more and more about Krishna. From our peers, we want to develop deep friendships to serve Krishna. To the junior devotees, we want to... Krishna loves them so much. He's entrusted them to me to help them to love Krishna. In this way, I'm their servant. And to the conditioned souls who are completely forgetful, Krishna loves them. And he's giving me a chance to... Krishna's giving me a chance to serve him by awakening that bhakti in the hearts of these people. That's why we're always in the mood of a servant, of a servant, of a servant. That's Vaishnava. That was the mood of Uddhava. That was the mood of Vidura. And that was the mood of Maitreya. Vidura so advanced. He had such a much longer standing of relationship. Maitreya was best friends with Vyasadeva. But Vidura, Krishna came to his house. According to the legend, he came to his house to eat banana peels. After after he rejected the sumptuous, opulent feast and all the gifts that Duryodhana had prepared for Krishna. Duryodhana prepared this luxurious feast for Krishna. He wanted to please Krishna so that he could get something from Krishna. And Krishna had no interest in that. That was of course, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but Duryodhana had everything prepared and everyone knew he was hosting Krishna, and Krishna walked by and didn't go. It's quite an insult, actually. And he went to Vidura's house. And different versions of story, but some. Vidura wasn't even home because he didn't know Krishna was coming. Duryodhana was planning this for a long time. It's like a big major event. And Krishna just came to Vidura's house. His good wife. There was no food. But Krishna was happy, completely satisfied with the love and devotion. So Maitreya recognizes what is the glory of Vidura's relationship with Krishna. But still it's Krishna's will that I instruct you. And Vidura is asking so many beautiful questions. And again, Vidura is asking because he loves Krishna so much. And he just had the beautiful darshan with Uddhava, and he was hearing about the Braj Leela and the love of separation of Uddhava. But he's asking Maitreya not only because in his love for Krishna, everything about Krishna is ultimately glorious. He's asking about creation. He's asking about the creation of the universes and Lord Brahma's functions, and about the descendants of Brahma and how they made so many descendants. And he's asking about the various incarnations of the Lord, of how Krishna comes to this world again and again and again, in so many forms and so many ways. He's asking about so many teachings. But please know, when Vidura's hearing these things, when he's hearing about Lord Brahma creating a universe under the instruction and guidance of Krishna, he's feeling love for Krishna in that story. And that brings us to today's verse. We just heard about all the different sons, Manu and Narada and Shiva and everybody that are born from Lord Brahma in this creation. And we just heard about the various Purusha avatars creating the universes and the worlds. And now Maitreya Rishi is about to speak about the appearance of Lord Varahadev. The chapter title is The Appearance of Lord Varaha. Now, what is Vidura hearing when he's hearing the glories of Varahadev? So merciful, so compassionate. He saved all of our lives. If he didn't come and save the earth, none of us would be here today. You know, your parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, your great-great-grandparents, your great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents, everybody
They're all depending on the earth. Varahadev was like the avatar for sustainable living. He literally sustained the whole ecology of Mother Earth and all living beings in the earth. And in the process, he had that really nice pastime with Hiranyaksha. But for a devotee of Krishna, he's just thinking, Krishna's doing like this. There's a beautiful story in Vrindavan at Varahadev, where the gopis were chastising Krishna. And Krishna, they wanted to see Krishna's form of Varahadev. So Krishna actually manifested the form of Varahadev to the gopis. And after seeing this incredible, gigantic form, they were just seeing Krishna's glories. And Krishna was revealing, he was increasing their gopi bhava by manifesting the form of Varahadev for them. But they're not just seeing Varahadev, they're seeing that this is Krishna coming in this form. So similarly for Gaudiya Vaishnavas, when we're absorbed in Krishna and Radha Gopinath, when we hear about Varahadev, it's completely extraordinary and wonderful because our Radha Gopinath has come in this form just to save the world. We're seeing Krishna in Varaha. And it's very interesting because one of the highest of all Vaishnava literatures in Bhava, in Prema, one of the literatures that Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he especially relished in his most intimate ecstasies in the Mahabhava of Sri Radha, was the Gita Govinda. And Jayadev Goswami begins by just glorifying the Das avatars. Kesavadrita, Kurma Sarira. He's glorifying Kurma, the tortoise. Keshavadrita Sukara Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hari. He's glorifying the Varaha, boar, our incarnation. Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa, Lord Nrsingadev. When Jayadev Goswami is singing those, while writing such intimate leelas of Radha and Krishna in Gopi Gita, he's relishing how Krishna has come in all of these wonderful forms. He's seeing the lover of Sri Radha manifesting in these most compassionate forms. And actually, unless we understand the power and the glory of the Lord and the compassion and mercy of the Lord in these various incarnations, we won't really appreciate what is the leelas of Radha and Krishna. This is the all-powerful, supreme, absolute truth, the Godhead, who could lift the entire planet Earth effortlessly between his tusks. Kurma Avatar, I believe the size of his shell was 800,000 miles. Yes. It's not just like a turtle. Is a turtle, but Krishna turtle. So when we understand these incarnations, it just deepens our... Krishna's playing in this way with his gopis. But who is this Krishna? Sri Shukadev Goswami said, O king, after hearing all these most virtuous topics from the sage Maitreya, and it has mostly been about creation, Vidura inquired further on the topics of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which he adored to hear. Vidura said, O sage, what did Swayambhuva, the dear son of Brahma, do after obtaining his very loving wife? These are very... That's tomorrow's verse. We also have so many marriage ceremonies here at Radha Gopinath Temple. But they're transcendental pastimes of the Lord and the Lord's devotees. Thank you very much.